Hala an alla. Today is another live German lesson. So in the last two lessons, we were looking at the present tense and the past tense of German verbs, and today we're going to look at the future tense. So this is going to be a short lesson because it's not very that complicated. As English has evolved from German, you'll notice that when we do a future in English, and we say "I will do something," basically you just have will or shall, depending on kind of the type of English that you speak. And in German, you use that auxiliary verb werden, which is equivalent to the verb to become in English. And it actually does conjugate. It has 6 forms, unlike English with will or shall. But even still, you just need to use these 6 conjugations of werden, and then add the infinitive, and that's it. So I'm going to share my screen here. And as you can see, I haven't really put much on the page just because, well, yeah, you have the subject pronouns, ich, du, sie, er, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie. I put the z again as like a singular form because it can be a singular formal, but its conjugation is the third person plural here. Okay, so we're going to take the example here of like sprechen or verstehen, and we have the conjugation here: ich werde sprechen, ich werde verstehen, du wirst sprechen, du wirst verstehen, er, sie, es wird sprechen, er, sie, es wird verstehen, wir werden sprechen, wir werden verstehen, ihr werdet sprechen, ihr werdet verstehen, sie werden sprechen, sie werden verstehen. Okay. If you're going to ask a question or make have an infinitive on here or add some objects on here, be careful with the syntax, because you're going to have like this "Willst du Deutsch sprechen?" So the infinitive there will be at the end, but you'll start with the auxiliary verb. So "Willst du Deutsch sprechen?" Werden Sie Deutsch sprechen? Like, will you speak German? And like, yes, I will speak German. Ja, ich werde Deutsch sprechen. Or no, nein, ich werde nicht Deutsch sprechen. Okay. Just another few comments here that when an adverb of time is present, or when it is otherwise clear that the future actions or events are indicated, German speakers normally use the present tense rather than the future tense to talk about what will happen in the future. So an example might be like, nächstes Jahr fahren wir nach Schweden. So next year we're going to Sweden. Or was magst du, wenn du in Schweden bist? Like, what are you going to do when you're in Sweden? So notice I'm using kind of like a going to in English, but German doesn't use a going to form. So you're never going to hear a form of like gehen to express a future. Gehen is just like going somewhere. If it's kind of understood most likely in conversation, you probably might just use the present tense. So you might have, for example, like wir tun's bald, like we'll do it soon, or we shall do it, we will do it soon. Wir werden es bald tun. So the infinitive will go at the end. There is also a future perfect form, which would combine werden and what we've seen before for the past tense, with using haben and a past participle. For like in conversation, people would use that for the past tense. Well, the future perfect is a combination of that. You'd be using werden, and then you'd be using haben in the past perfect, past participle. So, for example, you could say something like, bis dann werden wir es getan haben. Like, we will have it done. By then, we will have it done. And so it's not too complicated. If you're familiar with like English future and English future perfect, you can see how this evolved from the German in here. So I don't have too many other notes on here. Just, yeah, you don't have a going to form like you have in English. You just have this will, shall type of form. And most of the time, if the context is clear enough, there will be probably a present tense being used in conversation. Okay, well, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and that's about it that I wanted to demonstrate to you for these future in German. And next week we'll be looking at some little interjections and little bits and phrases that people use when speaking to make their sound more natural. So things like oh, really interesting, and actually, so things like genau. So those are things that when I got first started learning German a long time ago, like in 1999, 2000, I made an effort to learn those interjections. And there, on one occasion, I went to visit, pick up my father from his university classes where he was teaching, and he had a student who was German. And I decided to practice a little bit of my German, and I was using these little bits and phrases that we'll be looking at in the next lesson next week. And just the way I was using them, it sounded very natural, very colloquial. And I didn't have a chance to talk with her and my dad at the same time, but I just talked with her, and then my dad came out of his class, and I said bye, and then took him home. And I think the next time that that his students saw him, she was asking like, "Oh, I never knew that you lived in Germany." And my dad just looked kind of like, "Excuse me, like we've never lived in Germany. Why would you think that?" He said, "Well, your son seemed to speak fairly well. He sounded almost kind of native-like." So that was a very nice compliment that I received. Obviously, that was a long time ago. My German, meanwhile, has gotten very rusty. And I know from the comments and suggestions I've received on these videos that I need to work on my pronunciation. And thank you for that feedback. And I know these videos are a way for me to kind of continue practicing it, and also to share the knowledge that I've accumulated so it doesn't just go to waste. But so I know there's an expression that when one person teaches, two people learn. So that's really why I like making these videos and doing the research and going through in here. So with these lessons that we've gone through of like present tense, past tense, and then today future, you should be able to get started with making some conversations, going into some of these websites like Wiktionary and looking at the verb tables. And there are lots of other websites that offer those verb tables as well. So you don't really have any excuses now for not getting started with conversations. So we've gone through a lot of, in these last like 9 or 10 weeks of these videos, we've gone through presenting yourself, talking about yourself, talking about your family, describing people in the third person, starting conversations on Skype, in text, and then now going in a little bit more into depth into the actual conjugations of those verbs, and then kind of putting a little bit of pepper and spice into these little interjections that you can add. Next week, I'm accumulating a list of those details, and we'll continue that next time. So thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next lesson. Take care.